Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Okay, let's talk about the flight plan. Okay, I will cover the cloud discussion here. I don't find a good name. You're gonna see it later in the presentation. I try to do my best, but the whole idea is where am I, where I'm going, and how do I get there around cloud computing? Because right now everybody is talking about adoption of the cloud, especially to move through several vendors such as Amazon, Oracle Cloud, Google, and so on. But how can I make sure that I'm doing adoption of the cloud if without have vendor lock-in, right? Because I want to move easily between clouds. Otherwise, I need to pay the price of that condition. And trust me, sometimes it happens. Before I start, I know you don't, it looks like you don't like free stickers, but let me say again, I have free sticker here on my table. You can take it for free after the presentation. Please take it. That's funny because usually in Brazil, we usually fight for free stuffs, right? We usually kill somebody because of thief, free t-shirt, free stickers, free everything. Mainly free food. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this presentation today. A little bit about me. Yes, I usually wear conference t-shirts. My name is Otavio Santana at Otavio Java. I am software and architect engineer, mostly work in several languages and frameworks. My specialty is work in APIs. So you are my users on this perspective. Because I enjoy open source, and indeed my workspace is open source because, as I mentioned before, I do tools. I become Java champion. I have been working in Java since Java 8. So sorry if you don't like Java higher than 8. I tried my best, but Java is hard. I'm also open source committer in Apache and Eclipse Foundation. I'm a member of CNCF as well. I'm leader of several products. And yes, when I do have free time, I enjoy to write articles and books, especially about technology. That means, yes, I don't have enough friends, so I usually in my weekend, I write code instead of, see the park, see the life happen. So I need to have friends. So join me on Twitter so we can talk about several things. By the way, you have a lovely city. I enjoy. I still have no idea why there is a horse with just relax. But anyway, with me, at least visually, I have Karina Varela. She is Principal Technical Marketing Manager at Red Hat. If you don't know about Red Hat is basically the biggest open source company in the world. She organized several conferences around the globe. She received the Red Hat Champion last year. She has over 10 years of experience around software and global scale. If you want to know any kind of software that Karina did, please just look in the sky. Basically, she helped to handle the aircraft system that's run in Java, so be careful when you take a plane, and also who run Red Hat solution as well. And she's an instructor, and she writes books and articles, but she has a family, so she's not doing that on her free time, hopefully. But today is not to talk about me, right? Let's talk about cloud, because right now everybody's talking about cloud. Cloud is amazing. Cloud is one thing that you need to use, but why? Why everybody's talking about cloud native? Because everybody wants to achieve success, okay? But what does mean success? Because success might mean any kind of thing, right? So basically, to that discussion, let's put in our mind that success is a faster innovation if without impacting the stability. Therefore, it's one thing that's impossible, and everybody tries to sell. At least that's what I'm doing right now. However, in the real world, it's not so perfect. We usually try to have this expectation here, like Apollo or Helios, where we fly high, closer to the sun, everything's amazing, everything, there is no issue around that. However, in the reality, we are like Icarus, right? We fall down when you go closer to the sun or when you fly higher and higher in the cloud. And that is the issue, right? Because we want something, but it's hard, and nobody tell us why I'm doing this thing wrong, why it's going wrong, how can I go there? Basically, the idea here that we wrote is a methodology to try to move. It's not a maturity model, but just a instruction based on several maturity models and also frameworks adoptions, Amazon, Google, and Oracle Cloud, to move your application, to move your architecture to the cloud. Why are we talking about Flightplan? Basically because Flightplan has several stuff that is important to us. The Flightplan is when we decide to take a plane, it go to another direction, another destination. So it must have the departure, it must have landing place, it must have stops. I should have a schedule to do that, to make it possible. Every aircraft has identification. There is things that I can handle, there are things that I'm not able to handle, but I need to be aware, like weather, equipment, flight crew. Is my flight crew qualified enough to move on that way or not? Full planes and security. In a flight, we have ETOPS. In software architecture, we have several tests and several methodologies to make it possible. Okay? And in our context, the flight plan is basically the idea of where am I when I decide to use cloud, how far I can go. Because we are talking about security and software, we need to make sure that we are doing baby steps. Because it doesn't make sense to try to fly too far from the initial distance. Internal condition, external condition, budget, and for sure, safety. Because I need to move slightly to don't have impact on my organization, on my application. The idea is exactly 4 steps: evolution and mapping, set the objective, the product execution, and finally, the optimization of that. Okay, so right now we're going to talk about this analogy. So where are we? Where should we go next? And how do I get there? Basically, the idea is to use maturity model to make it possible. Yes, in the software history, we took several maturity models around. We have CMMI, we have the Richard maturity model, the Glory Rest. We have 1,000 of business progress management maturity model and several framework adoption cloud model and so on. I guess the most famous one to us Java developers is the Glory Rest, where I start my application from scratch and I want to move on to the highest quality to create REST application, right? So I start to understand where am I, the resource, then use the ATP verbs, and finally the hypermedia controls or hey to us. So this is an amazing and a perfect solution, the highest one. The idea here is to try to use the same analogy or methodology to achieve the same success, but to the cloud. For sure, we're not able to use the same name because God of Cloud looks like a church, so you're talking about technology. So that's why you tried the Java plan. But the methodology is exactly the same. So we start from the scratch where we don't have cloud, and then move on until the latest or highest level of the cloud adoption. Okay? So let's start with the none, where I don't have any kind of cloud, or at least I know what cloud is, but I'd like to move deep on that. I'd like to know why I'm using cloud, and the step for that, the next step, the methodology, and so on. So when you talk about cloud, we have several cloud flavors, right? We have on-premise, where I'm not using cloud at all. We have the private cloud, where I hire some people to use cloud inside my organization. And then I have the public cloud. For sure, we are able to mix between this model. So we can use private and public and on-premise and so on. And something happened with public clouds, right? So we are able to mix these solutions. So we have IBM Cloud, we have Amazon Cloud, we have Google Cloud, and the perfect solution to us, the latest or the highest level of maturity model, is to achieve the multi-cloud model. Why? The idea is to avoid that I have one single point of failure, right? Because if I only have one solution, it's a nightmare to me to use it, because if this company decided to raise the price, I don't have option to change or to handle that. Trust me, it happened every time. At least with me, it happened 3 times last year. Hopefully, I used multi-cloud and was able to change, or at least have a better negotiation with that change. And we also have cloud service offerings. Basically, we know about the service, right? We understood the reason why everybody is moving to the cloud right now. The idea here is to talk more about the cloud is the focus to decrease the complexity and move on to the next level. Basically, we hire somebody to handle the somewhere or somebody else problem issue. So I delegate to IaaS because I don't want to handle the hardware. I delegate the PaaS because I don't want to delegate the infrastructure and the configuration person. I don't want to handle the DevOps. And finally, the SaaS. For sure, we have much more flavors around it. So we have this middle guy here that is a container as a service. It's a premature definition. There are several studies around it, but the idea is to decrease the complexity of IaaS, but it's not abstract enough to become a PaaS. So it's this guy here is the middle level. It's a container as a service again. So think about the Kubernetes flavors, where we have Kubernetes vanilla, the pure implementation of Kubernetes, and also we have several Kubernetes implementations, such as OpenShift and so on. And finally, we also have this implementation here, the Managed Application Service. Why? Because right now we have, for example, database as a service. It's possible to use NoSQL database if without handle with backup, with upgrade, with this kind of thing. So those are the platform as a service extensions. Hey, Otavio, you did not mention serverless. Okay, by CNCF, serverless is not a kind of service, but an architecture definition. So if you want to see here, I will share the slides. But as you can see, the link here, it's a kind of architecture decision in the cloud. And the whole idea here is to, let's put more focus on the business instead of the control. Okay, that's what the graph says. So as much we're using serverless, we lose the control and the power to change any kind of details and implementation. But instead, we are able to focus more in the business perspective. Okay, Otavio, but how about cloud native? Who knows what is cloud native? Right now, the whole point is nobody knows what cloud native is, especially because there is 1,000 of definitions. Cloud native is the new Hakuna Matata, right? Everybody has your own definition. It's a philosophical definition. So, okay, I'm going to use this one, that one, and so on. So, yes, there is this organization here, the CNCF, that has a beautiful definition that's mentioned, okay, it's an empowered organization to use cloud with private solutions, service mesh, microservice, immutable infrastructure are some approach. That looks amazing, but to me, it's just a join of several buzzwords. That means nothing, right? To me, the best definition of cloud native belongs to Emmanuel Bernard, who is distinguished engineer at Red Hat, who said that cloud native is a new word to sell old stuffs. So I really believe in that as well. So any book here has your own definition around cloud native. So right now, each company has your own definition about cloud native as well. So my advice to you is don't spend too much time on that definition because nobody knows until, at least until now. But the whole point here, when you talk about cloud native, is optimization of application through cloud. And you're going to use 3 steps: orchestrations, containers, and automation. And every time that we talk about the adoption and evolution of this methodology in the cloud, we have this way here. We're going to start with the small step where we're going to create the MVP, minimal valuable product, where we are able to choose between a small piece of the whole architecture system, then prepare for sure, and then expand. Okay, I will start. Okay, I'm using the internet banking sample. We're going to explore the payment sector area. I will prepare the MVP, then expand that to put in production, then optimize to finally self-sustain. What does mean the self-sustain? Is the possibility to do it automatically if without too much effort from the team. Okay? Right now, I understood the first level of the flight plan, and let's move on to the next one. The idea here is to, okay, let's put something in the cloud. Especially because when we talk about cloud adoption, we are talking about the complexity, to decrease the complexity, to analyze the risk and costs, especially when we talk about complexity, we talk the way to achieve the simplicity. And there is this amazing book here, The Philosophy of Software Design, where it has a beautiful definition about complexity. That is one easy way to decrease the change or the change amplification and the load cognitive of the system. For example, I want to change a small piece of my code to put a new functionality. How many pieces do I need to change to make it possible? So, if I need to change a lot of places, it has a huge amount of change amplification. But if you have a small one, just a single piece of my code, or a small integration, it has less change amplification. Okay? When you talk about cloud, at least in the level initial, we talk about cost, risk, and abstraction, especially because, okay, if I want to use a PaaS, it has higher abstraction, but the cost usually is bigger than infrastructure as a code. But anyway, the cloud definition and initial step is about business velocity, security controls, and cost efficiency. Okay? Let's move on to the next step, the level 2, where we're going to optimize everything, at least try. Why? Because the main idea here is to break down the silos, to achieve 3 points. I want to prevent any kind of nightmare. I want to make sure that it works in anything, not only on my machine, to avoid delay, to take decision, and first of all, to have a huge integration between the teams, between the groups. So the idea here is to avoid nightmare using break down the silos of knowledge of the whole team. Okay? Because when you talk about software development, we have this evolution here. We started with Agile. For sure, it wasn't enough, where we put the integration with developers and users at some page. And then we moved to DevOps because, okay, I have my code is ready to production. However, my operation team is not ready to move this code to production. Okay, let's create a culture to make this two-person or these two teams to work together. So DevOps, developers, and operation. But for sure, when you don't talk about security, it's not enough. I need to also make sure that my integration is safe, has less damage. So that's why we have also the word DevSecOps. As you can see here, integration, user and developers, integration, developers and operation, and DevSecOps here, developers, securities, and operation. Developers, developers, developers. We're talking about integration, integration, and integration. When you go to integration and automation, for sure, we talk about the continuous integration and continuous delivery. The whole idea here is to make sure that when I put an application on this level, it has automation enough to run the continuous integration and the continuous delivery of this little guy here. So I'm able to build, open APR, test, run the CI, and check if everything's okay. Right now, we're talking about tools to prevent any kind of security issues, like such as a SAST, static analytics of security, for example, or a SEC, where we're able to check if there is any kind of security issue, for example, SQL injection in my code or something like that. And then I'm able to merge this change to my main or master branch to finally deploy my application. So at this level, we should focus more in automation. Automation and automation. This way here, we try at least to reduce the commit that's broken on production. We try to avoid the surprise that's happened, and unfortunately it's happened even with CI/CD, right? It's a real world. The idea here is to make sure that all tests cover what matters and just go to production when it passes. The idea here is to automating everything. Okay, let's move on to the level number 3, or third level, where I make everything observable and modifiable. But how? With infrastructure as a code. The idea here is to make sure that everything that I put in production is observable and modifiable. Imagine right now that I have my code that is on probably repository, right? We are talking about the 12-factor application. And the idea is also take the operation configuration and put on this way as well, thanks to infrastructure as a code. Why? Because right now, we have more transparency, we have the right idea what's going on, we have more security about the version that's running my JVM, my database, and so on. It's easier to modify. Why? Okay, imagine right now that I'd like to upgrade my Java version to Java 17. I can create a PR to make this change possible, okay? Then I'm able to test it and then go to production if it makes sense. If I put this guy on production and something goes wrong, I'm able to revert using the Git or any kind of version control. So everything is observable, reversible, modifiable, and with more security. Unfortunately, we lost the excuse of, okay, it only works on my machine. But it's a trade-off, right? So sometimes we lost something. We have these tools here to make your life easier. So we have Terraform, we have Amazon CDK. My personal opinion about it, we don't like in our team, so we don't have success to run this little guy. but we enjoy Terraform in Helm a lot. So it's any kind of situation, especially because our platform engineer don't have enough experience. They know how to code, but know how deep to code, and they enjoy more EML file than code. But anyway, those are the tools. You're able to test and check it. And to me, the latest version of GitOps is when we combine infrastructure as a code with PRs and with continuous integration and continuous delivery. Because right now, we have the code, we have the operation code, and both are inside the repository, in the Git repository. This way, I have the Git as a single source of truth to both, to the code and to operation. I have the Git as a single place to operate. It doesn't matter if it's a code, if it's operation. And all the changes are observable and verifiable. Okay? So that's the idea of GitOps. To decrease the complexity, sometimes we prefer to use 2 different repositories to make sure the right people has the right to write on that repository. It's a decrease the complexity to change. So for example, if I have one huge application, I have one repo to this application, another one repo to the operation of this application. But it's on you if you want to merge a single one or to have 2 different Git repositories, okay? But what can I say is I had more success when I split because it's more easier to review. The latest one is the optimization of it. The idea here is, okay, right now I have the idea how to run the application. I understand why I'm running in the cloud. Then I did the optimization with CI and CD, or continuous integration and continuous development. I make it more observable and modifiable with infrastructure as a code, and then I move to the latest state of art with GitOps, where I'm able to make the code and the operation source modifiable and observable. And the latest version or level of this is the automation, where, okay, I'm able to make my solution in the hybrid cloud. Why do I need to think about hybrid cloud? Because that is a huge vendor lock-in in the cloud. I know sometimes it's better to use just Amazon. Sometimes it's best to use just Google Cloud. But in some case, for example, a finance bank that we are working in Brazil, for example, it doesn't make sense to use just one cloud vendor. Why? The first reason is because if something goes wrong, the bank should move on. So if Amazon shut down for some reason, the application should be on the air because we are talking about billions of dollars. We are talking about a bank, right? Also, usually it's more easier to negotiate when you talk about avoid this vendor lock-in. So I can move easily to another one or stay on this one as well. So the whole idea here to the optimization is to avoid the vendor lock-in in your solution. Okay? So one good point when I talk about vendor lock-in and how to avoid is to say there is a huge difference between popularity and standard. Okay? For example, Docker is popular, but it's not standard. The whole idea of standard is there is organization behind with an API and way to implement that API. So we have the standard. For example, in Java, we have the JCP, the Java Community Process. We have the Open Container Initiative to define the organization or the standard of containers. We have the W3C to define the standard to the web, to ECMAScript, to HTML, and so on. The idea here is to make sure that we understand that, okay, this framework or this solution is so popular, so it's standard. No, no. One thing is popularity, and another thing is the standard. Okay? So make sure that point. So in the world right now, we are looking to do the standard to avoid this kind of vendor lock-in, especially when we talk about cloud. We have the CNCF. The idea of the initiative is to create tools to make easier to you don't use any kind of cloud solution. Okay, so CNCF has this huge cloud solution landscape where we are able to choose the solution based on what you want. For example, container runtimes. As you can see, we have 1,000 of that. Cloud native network, database, and so on. The main idea here is to avoid that you become a vendor lock-in in one single solution. And that is it. So the idea here was to show the Flightplan solution to adoption. So we started from scratch with none solution, and then we moved to optimize solution as well. So we moved to none, to initial, to optimization, to make it observable and modifiable until optimized application. That is it. So thank you, everybody. Let me sure if there is questions. 1 second. Hope you enjoy. But anyway, you are able to take at least 3 stickers. One second, let me share the screen. Let's use a mirror here right now. And that is it. So thank you, everybody. Hopefully see you soon.